Swap? Welcome back to Swap at Home. Hey, this has kind of been a crazy quarantine. I may or may not have put on the quarantine 15, and so I thought it'd be a really good idea to actually get the Swap staff to do a little workout with me. So, hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to Tyler's Bizarre Adventures. I think a lovely bike ride is a great idea if I want to be a grandma. So, in other words, I'm going on an adventure. I'm gonna go hunt down a dragon or a troll, see what happens first. It's been around, I'm gonna guess, 7 to 10 minutes. I haven't found anything yet, but I did find some pretty fascinating birds. I almost ran over one, so I was kind of sad. That's a radioactive electrical thing. I can smell, I can taste it in the air. I can taste the smell of dragons. We're coming close. I do get my dragons and trolls mixed up. I've landed somewhere on the streets of Windsor's. I think they're a wizard guild. It's been a fun journey. I think I'm 20 to 25 minutes in right now. Gonna be completely honest, I'm lost. I see a bridge. I got a bit of a correction to make. Trolls don't live under bridges, they live under the ground, near bridges. Always turn down your gears when going up a hill. I gotta find a map. We all know trolls don't build walls, they live under. Dragons, they don't build walls, but what does build a wall? I'm gonna guess it's the work of mutated gerbils. I think I'm heading north. I hope to catch a frisbee between my legs someday. There's a playground. Okay, so cool fun fact about playgrounds. Gremlins hate them, but I got this. I'm pretty sure there is no woods near our park, but somehow I've managed to get into one. We're close, but this is really confusing because I don't know where I am. There's a bench! Okay, so fun fact about benches, they don't move much. So I always ask them how they're feeling, but they're pretty quiet. So when people fart on them, the friction heats up the bench and it gets harder for them. But right now, completely lost. A fun fact, I found a waterfall. So we need to find this map because right now I'm short of maps. I hit the water tower, well, not physically. I more like hit the gate that surrounds it. Okay, guys, you're gonna get really grossed out. That was just a snake. Almost near it. Entering troll territory under the bridge. I realized if you keep smiling and looking at the people around you, oh, there's an ocean. If you keep looking at the people and smiling around you, it makes their day. I just saw a really weird people frowning, and then they looked at me, and I'm like, they need some Jesus right now. Well, I smile. And I think it made their day. It's always nice to be respectful, even when you lost. Dirt path, no more. It's now paved. We're back on paved road, so we're all good right now. I think I see the church.
Well, welcome to our last week of our series, Origin Story. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about superheroes and how they have an origin story, how they've been called to serve a purpose, and how they work best when they're on a team. Now, I don't know about you, but what I found when you have a lot of people coming together and talking about superheroes, you inevitably have one question that is always asked, and that is, who would win in a fight? And we've seen this in the recent movies. We've got Batman versus Superman, Captain America versus Iron Man, and we even have had Thor versus Hulk. And if you watch that movie, you see that Thor and Hulk, even though they were on the same team, even though they had the same purpose that they were going for, they inevitably came together and fought and clashed just to see who could be the better fighter. Now, last week, if you remember, we talked about how the disciples sometimes had conflict. We looked in Scripture and saw that the writers warned us about how we as Christians deal with conflict with each other. And you might be thinking, well, what does it really look like to fight with each other? A few years ago, I had a friend, and we basically did everything together. We played games, we would watch movies, we had a lot of fun, but we were also both very competitive. So we were always trying to outdo the other person, we were always trying to one-up them, be better, and even if it made the other person look like a total fool, we didn't care because we wanted to be the best. And what we found happening was our friendship, as close as it was actually beginning to fizzle out, where we didn't always want to hang out with the other person because we were tired of being made to look like a fool. So we had one of two options presented. We sat down and talked it out, and we realized we could either stop being friends or we could figure out what we were doing to hurt the other person, and we would work towards stop doing that. And that we chose option two. We worked together, we apologized, we said we were sorry for what we were doing when we were hurting the other person, and we actively looked out for ways to lift the other person up instead of putting them down. Now here's the thing, that actually wasn't our idea. We actually got that idea from the Bible. Let's look and see what it says in James. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. Reconciling with others when they have hurt you or when you have hurt them can be hard. Just like with Thor and Hulk, when they fought and hurt each other, Thor admitted and apologized to Hulk for what he had done, and Hulk had a chance to apologize and admit what he had done to hurt Thor. And this is what we really want to get to the heart of, that superheroes are stronger when they're willing to admit and apologize for what they have done.
Admitting and apologizing is so important. And it really comes back to this principle that Jesus teaches us about. How do we treat other people? There's a story in Luke where a young lawyer comes up to Jesus and he begins to ask him this question in attempts to try and fool Jesus into angering the religious leaders. But Jesus was not fooled. Listen to this passage in Luke. Luke 10:25 through 29. One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question. Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus replied, What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it? The man answered, You must love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Right, Jesus told him. Do this, and you will live. The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, And who is my neighbor? It's almost like this guy was asking the question, what's the bare minimum that I could do to please God? Jesus flips the question around, and he says it simply, love your neighbor as yourself. But the young lawyer, he wanted to push back even more, and he asked the question, Who's my neighbor? And Jesus responds back with the rest of the story, though you probably know as the Good Samaritan. Pick it back up in verse 30. Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along. But when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed him by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time that I am here." Now, which of these 3 would you say was the neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Yes, now go and do the same." Now, there's no real question who the hero in this story was. It was the Good Samaritan. As a matter of fact, Good Samaritan wasn't even a thing until he did what he did. And it brings to light this important point, that the Good Samaritan, he was heroic in an ordinary moment. Maybe you've seen someone that was in need or hurt and you ignored them. Or maybe it was your words that hurt them, but yet you just ignored that. Let's talk more about how we can step into these heroic moments and admit and apologize.
Heroes are known for righting wrongs. It's basically in their job description. But what happens when heroes are the ones who cause the wrong, right? I think it's really easy to step into situations where we see something going wrong and we want to be big and flashy and help solve problems. But sometimes the most difficult moments to do the right thing, the most difficult moments to be heroic, are when you were the one that caused the wrong. Being a hero truly means having the bravery to step in and apologize and to reconcile with people that you have hurt. Maybe heroism isn't about big, flashy moments of bravery. Maybe being a hero means less about flying into a situation and changing it, but maybe true heroism is being brave to solve some of the hardest issues that maybe you've caused, because heroes are heroic in ordinary moments.
So who's your neighbor? Jesus is clear that your neighbor is anybody. The people you like, the people you care about, the people you do fun things with, but also the people that you don't like, that you can't stand, the people you've hurt. And what happens is the people who are your neighbors that you hurt, what you're doing is you're building up fences that will ultimately separate you from your neighbor. You create fences of bitterness, anger, resentment, jealousy, you name it. If it's separating you from your neighbor, it's a fence. And what Jesus is ultimately calling all heroes to do is to remove that fence of separation so that you can, again, admit you're wrong, apologize, and step back into the life of your neighbor. So take the next few minutes and answer the questions that are on your screen for how can you be a hero in ordinary circumstances.
So how can we be heroic in ordinary moments? We actually have been kind of saying it throughout this whole thing. In those moments when we've hurt people, in those moments when we've been hurt by people, here's what we can do. We can admit where we've been wrong or the things that we've said that have hurt people. We can admit those things and then apologize. It's not about defending yourself or making it all about you. It's about admitting where you're wrong and apologizing for the purpose of reconciling relationships together, of tearing down those fences, of coming back together with people. So let's be heroes who reconcile and admit where we're wrong and ask for forgiveness, because that is truly heroic.
God has called us to be heroes here on earth. In the Bible, it says it a little differently. It says that we're called to be his hands and feet. But you are called to be a hero every day in ordinary moments. I hope you've enjoyed this series as we've wrapped up this year together. We've talked about your origin story. We've talked about the mission that Jesus has given us to go out and to love other people. We've talked about the team that we are a part of as we serve Jesus on his mission. And today we talked about being heroic in ordinary moments. As we wrap up this series, we want you to know how known and loved you are by God and by the SWAP staff. We love you. We're so glad that you are a part of our family, and we can't wait until we get to see you again.
Hey, whoa. Before you go, make sure you stay connected. Go like us on Instagram, Facebook, check out our Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, all right? All right, see you later. Bye.